Other stuff out of the way. Did the emails all come through good? I know there was the initial hiccup when I tried to attach the video. I think it exceeded the bandwidth. But we got one of our staff back that could create the YouTube link. So hopefully that worked. Did everybody get a chance to watch the YouTube? Awesome. So let's do the minutes first. Everybody happy with the minutes? I know Karina and her team are including way more detail in them now. Any motion to approve the minutes?
I move that we approve them as presented.
I have a second.
Second. So before we get into the new business for today, I wanted to cover a couple things real quick. So we're getting into the planning phases of two things that I would like to include CAP members in. One is we've got our website edited where there's a link now. It says, I think it says policy comment. It's on the homepage of the department's public website. So when you click that link, it takes you to Conveo. And so we hid everything that had been posted on Conveo for the CAP. And I have on there right now the limited English proficiency policy. We have not advertised it yet. I want to shoot a video with Elizabeth and her partner Inez, educating the community on what we're doing. Just a short video that they can push out through all the different media platforms. And I was gonna do it myself, and then I thought, well, it'd be better if I did it with a CAP member. And Elizabeth will choreograph the whole thing. I don't know exactly what that looks like, or Inez will. But the idea would be doing a video, letting the broader community know what this process looks like of working with the CAP and BPD together. The work that has gone into all the policies up to this point, and then advertising the opportunity that the community has to go on there and review these policies and make recommendations on the policy, and then just kind of encouraging them to participate. Next question. Any takers?
I don't know what that entails, but wait, it will be the video of like how to use Conveo or just in?
Just in general. So I came up with some generic talking points that I'm open to editing. First of all, just stating the purpose. So like the talking point that I had, I'm not going to read all of these, but we're here today to share the ongoing policy development revision work happening within the Bakersfield Police Department, work that's been taking place in close partnership with our community advisory panel. So just something along those lines as an introduction explaining this. And then going into, like I would cover like the internal work that has happened. And then the next section would be the community advisory panel work that has gone into these policies. Then explaining how to use Conveo and where they can find the link. And then just closing out with some encouraging remarks to try to get members of the community to go on there and review the policies and make suggestions. And then the idea would be that this video would be generic and not to a specific policy, just advertising this entire process. And then we would make a push also saying the limited English proficiency policy is currently posted. Please visit our website and click on this link to review the policy and make suggestions. And then that would be how the non use of force ones would be advertised. With use of force, obviously, we're going to do a town hall meeting and then probably do another big push for those ones. But I think it would be better received by the community, like if it was a united front, like BPD and the CAP together explaining this.
Yeah. Are you guys also still accepting like ongoing applications? I know that we've been like,
Yes.
that people resign, so I don't know what is the process to onboard new people.
Yes,
I know we have 2 new people. Do we have 2 new people?
we do. So we have Joel.
Hi, Joe.
And then we have Jabre. So he runs a nonprofit that is up in Sacramento pushing or supporting a bill. And it was supposed to go this morning, so he thought he would make it back in time. And he texted me at about 3 o'clock and said, we still haven't gone. So he was bummed out. He wanted to be here today, but he said for sure next month he'll be here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just because the idea of the video promoting just an update of what the CAP has been doing, and also an invitation to, one, the policy, like
Yeah.
spaces where people can interact with the policy, but also if people want to be part of the CAP member, what is the application process? I think
Yeah, that's a good idea to add that. It's also on the website, so it'd be easy to add a talking point about go here to the transparency page and you can click the application. So we've been advertising that in each zone also. Chuck spoke in the Valley Zone about his experience on the CAP briefly. I didn't get a chance, Kathleen, by the time we got to that point in the presentation, you had to leave. And then in the South Zone, Dave was there and talked about his involvement with the CAP. And then I sent the next two, that's on my announcements, but we have the North Zone coming up on April 23rd, and that's going to be at River Lakes Church. And then we have the Metro Zone at Owens Primary School on April 30th. They both start at 6 o'clock. They've been running, Corinne, about 2 hours. So we go over the creation of the Community Engagement Division as a standalone division. We have Captain Morphus now in that division. And then we go over our Community Engagement Strategic Plan. And part of that is describing the Community Advisory Panel and encouraging people, if you're interested, apply.
So
Right.
how many people we need total? 25 DOJ recommendation? How many people?
No, I think Chief's goal is 18.
18. Oh, 18.
And if everybody showed, I think we have 12 or 13.
12.
Right now?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we need it, or you have enough application?
No, we need more.
We need it.
Yeah.
So as DOJ recommendation, like we need a certain kind of like a thing or not?
I don't
think
recall.
they say though. They say one from, right? They
Yeah,
say different things.
so there are named organizations.
Organizations, yeah.
So, and those organizations we've reached out to, and we do continue to reach out. So like, Jacob Evans couldn't serve a second term because he was just too busy at work. So he nominated, I can't remember the guy's name. He nominated somebody, and then after the first meeting that he wasn't able to attend, he said he couldn't do it. So Chief has reached out to the head public defender asking for somebody else. And they said that they would find somebody, but we haven't heard back yet. So we keep reaching out to these groups. So beyond the named organizations in the judgment, we need more just community members.
Oh, just community.
Yeah.
That's my goal.
So, sorry, go ahead, Tabitha.
Could you repeat the Metro, the date for Metro and North?
Yeah, the North meeting is April 23rd at River Lakes.
River Lakes Church?
River Lakes Church, yeah.
And then the Metro is at Owens?
The Metro is at, yeah, it used to be Bessie Owens, now it's Owens Primary at 815 Potomac. And that one is April 30th. They're on the bottom of the agenda too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Chuck.
I realize that it's late to change things, so I'm not suggesting that you change. But I have a concern about River Lakes Church. And, you know, I know they're brothers and sisters, but it's also a church that's taken a really strong anti-LGBTQ stand, and a church that has really taken a, Chaplain Frazier is one of the pastors there, and he's been a very public face for kind of a radical right-wing movement in Bakersfield, and I think that it's probably not a good place to hold community
I already know
events.
one person is afraid to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would just be for the future, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
We can handle it.
We'll consider that, yeah. Too late, like we'd have to recall a lot of advertisement, but I appreciate the
Just for
input.
the future, yeah. They have every right to be who they are, but for events like this, it'd be like having it at the Democratic Party offices.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any other questions on CAP membership? If you have somebody and they struggle with the website or something, let me know. I have the application like just as a file that I can email. Do you guys want me to email that out just after this meeting or tomorrow or whatever, just so you'll have it?
Yeah, that would be helpful. Always appreciate that, yeah.
Karina, will you jot that down and remind me?
Sometimes if you,
Email all the CAP members the application.
sometimes when you have it, you can like forward it to someone as opposed to, hey, this is an opportunity, go to the website. They'll be like, oh yeah, I'll get to it, I'll get to
Yeah.
it. But at least if you give them,
Yeah, we can send that out. I think I have it in English and Spanish, pretty sure. Any other questions on CAP membership before we move on? All right, couple other,
Volunteers for the video?
oh, yeah.
Chuck did.
Chuck?
I said, you want to see the video?
So it is on video, but,
I would be glad to do it, but, you know, another old white man, I'm not sure. If you can get somebody better, feel free.
so I will say it's on video, but I'm just as hesitant to be on video as probably everybody else.
You can do it. I don't know. You do it, right?
No, if you want to do it, go ahead.
No, I'm not actually. I'm not a video person.
All right.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Maybe if we do it in pairs, it might be a little, it might be.
Yeah,
it might
yeah,
be
the
a
more the
little-
merrier.
Okay.
All right, Chuck, Chuck's back on the board.
All right, we'll come back to it. Think on it. I think, what do you think in total length of the video, Elizabeth?
Probably a minute 30 is where we try to keep it.
Yeah, pretty brief.
Yeah.
There'll probably be more recording, and then I'm sure you'll cut it up and
Yeah.
make us look good.
So we could do a few pairs if you guys want to, and we can make that work. If it especially makes people feel comfortable, and then we get to see different faces of the CAP, so we can make it work and get with you to coordinate time, scheduling, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you guys say yes, so don't forget.
The other thing, and forgive me, I know I asked this before, but I forgot. For the use of forced town halls, is anybody willing to help just organize that? Rosa and Tabitha? Karina? Left my pen over there. Okay, sorry. In the announcements, the first one on there is the Audible Easter egg hunt. I just want to share with you exactly what that is. So the picture in the background of the agenda is actually from that event. So one of our, now he's a sergeant, but 9 years ago, I think, right? 9 years ago, Sergeant Juan Orozco came up with this idea to benefit blind and visually impaired kids. So we made Easter eggs that beep. And we hold the event at our Police Activities League, and we scatter these eggs all over the field. And then officers and BPD professional staff go out and guide the kids, and they follow the beep, and then they find the egg. And then they take that egg and they exchange it for an Easter basket full of goodies for them. Then it grew even more, and now I can't even think of everything that's going to be there. There's a bounce house, but there's people there to help the kids. There's a petting zoo, horseback riding. The group, what are they, the 51st Legion that wears the Star Wars costumes, they're there, and they specifically know the kids want to come up and feel their costume. There's an Easter bunny there, and it's grown to the point now, so we don't even just invite the kids. I think early on it was like the schools would bring the kids, and then some of their parents would come. So now we said just bring the whole family. So these kids and their entire family get to come do this Easter egg hunt, and then it's turned into all this other stuff too. We didn't bring any of the eggs, huh?
We actually sold out. We didn't anticipate selling out.
Okay.
We actually sold out this afternoon.
So I was going to make a shameless plug because we had these metal eggs made with Braille on them, and it has a bunny with like a bomb squad uniform on, because Juan Orozco was on our bomb squad that came up with this idea, and I was going to try to sell them to you guys to raise money for the event, but we sold out apparently, which is good. And then the other thing is April 26th is the Community Day at the Park. Very similar to like National Night Out. We'll have all our different teams out there doing displays. That'll include our Captain Morphos. You know, I'm sure recruitment will be out there. Advertising all the positions that we're hiring for. So if you know anybody interested in law enforcement, April 26th, they can meet with our recruitment team at Riverwalk Park. I think that's it for the announcements. So the first item, I'm sure y'all remember we did the presentation on the upgrade from the Taser 7 to the Taser 10. So Lieutenant Dawsey is here to talk about the pepper ball gun. So this is not necessarily new. It's we've had them in the past, and the problems weren't with the pepper ball gun. It was with the pepper balls. Launcher, sorry. So Lieutenant Dawsey will talk about some of the improvements to this stuff and how it would be applied as a T&E for the department. Yeah.
I thought I was candy.
What's that?
I said, I thought I was candy when I walked in.
Oh.
Don't eat those.
Yeah, don't eat those. Especially the orange ones, those are a little spicy. All right, good evening. My name is Rick Dawsey. I'm a lieutenant with Bakersfield PD. I run our special operations group, which essentially is SWAT, K9, BOMB, SRT. It's all of our specialized units within the department that we deploy on critical incidents or barricade subjects, you know, the real dangerous stuff. That's generally the stuff that we deal with. Probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we started looking into some other de-escalation type tools that we can use in the field that are less injurious, that are easy and honestly cheaper to buy for our officers and stay within our budget constraints. We've had pepper ball guns in the past, pepper ball launchers in the past. Probably about 10 years ago, we stopped using them. There was a manufacturing issue with the rounds, or these the projectiles, that the welds on them, because they're like they're welded together by the plastic, and basically what it was is they were swelling in the launchers when they were in our cars, because our temps get pretty high here in the summertime. And so when we go to deploy them, they wouldn't work, or they would jam, or it just wasn't a tool that was feasible for us at the time. So we started looking back into it again. We went to Phoenix PD, we went to several agencies up and down the state, started talking to other agencies, trying to see what best practices were, what they were using, and a lot of them were going back to the pepper ball launchers because the manufacturing process has gotten a lot better. The rounds can withstand heat. One of them, basically they had it in a jar in the trunk of a car in Phoenix, which is 120 degrees in the summertime, and there was no issues with the round. They left them down there all summer long, pulled them out in the fall, and used them, and there's no issues. So the process got better, and it was better quality made for the rounds. So we just started looking back at them, and this is kind of where we got. So if you go to the next one. So kind of our agenda, we want to talk about the launchers and the projectiles. I want to go over the comparison, kind of what a 40 millimeter launcher is versus a pepper ball launcher. Talk about the policy that covers the use. And then I was going to go over the departments in California that are using it right now. And then what I'm proposing for the test and evaluation for our department to use them. This basically is our pepper ball launcher system. If you can click it, there's a few. Yeah, there you go. So you can see they're all yellow. All of them look the same. They have yellow coloring on them, so there's it's very visually for the officer that grabs it. They realize that it's a less lethal weapon. That's generally across our department. Everything that's yellow is generally a less lethal type of weapon that we use. On the top, there's a hopper. This is basically where the rounds go into. They can hold up to 180. But there's a plate you can put in there that keeps it about 60 to 80. Those plates will be deployed in there just because that's quite a few rounds in each of the weapon systems. So it has a compressed air tank that we can remove, and it refills, and it's just compressed air. So we have a master tank at the department. They can go in there and refill it. It'll pretty much run an entire hopper before you need to fill it up, that's quite a few rounds. And then it's based on an AR platform, AR-15, which is the rifle we carry in our patrol. SWAT team carries it. It's basically kind of the same, so it's very easy to transition. You have your safety, and then you have a cocking mechanism. It's very similar to an AR type platform, which most officers in the department are very familiar with. These are the type of projectiles that we are going to be using. The farthest one, that'll be our operational ones. It has what we call PAVA, and I'll kind of go in that here in just a minute. And then you have your inert training rounds, which basically is baby powder in them. It kind of gives them the feel and the look like when you're using them to train and practice your target shooting and all that. And then you have the glass breakers, which is a completely different round. It's a hard nylon round. And when we're done, I'll pass them around so you guys can look at them and feel them. It's a hard nylon round. It is not intended for human use. It is only for breaking windows or glass or anything like that. Somebody that's maybe barricaded in a vehicle, we can bust out a rear window and we can actually put the PAVA rounds into the car, which basically is forcing them out to us so that we don't have anything, they don't have any weapons hidden on them, anything like that. Characteristics, it's a .68 caliber. They're very lightweight, 3.4 grams for the actual projectiles. The velocity is about 300 feet per second. Kinetic energy is 10 to 15 pounds, foot-pounds. And we'll see how that compares to a 40 millimeter launcher in just a second. Direct impact, it has a range up to 60 feet. They could actually go a little farther than that, but you start losing your accuracy at that point because it's not a rifle barrel or anything. It's just a smoothbore barrel that pushes out the projectile. Area saturation, you can use them a lot farther away, but again, you're not gonna have the extreme accuracy on it. But I can, if there's a large group of crowd that's very hostile, throwing things, we can actually put the rounds all around the crowd, and the powder itself will cause an irritant, and they'll hopefully disperse from that area. That's kind of the idea behind it. Shelf life on the rounds is about 3 years, and there's dates on the jars that come like that, and we'll kind of keep track of that when we're deploying them. They're frangible, so they're ultrasonically welded. That's the word I couldn't remember earlier, but basically they're welded two pieces together. They fracture on impact, so when you hit something, it just kind of bursts, and that's where the powder comes out. It will spread a payload over a large surface area, so if I hit the wall, it's going to basically fan out away from the wall, and it covers a larger area. What these do is they give us a tactical advantage. It gives us distance and time. That's what we're trying to get. So we don't have to resort to a higher level of force. We can it kind of buys us time to make the right decisions on how to get them to do what we need them to do without any further injury or a higher level of use of force. Their irritant is technically not a chemical. It's like you have gas in our 40 millimeter launchers, we use gas and stuff like that. These are more of an irritant, so it's kind of like a pepper spray. It's similar to a pepper spray, but it is a powder form. It basically takes the oils from a pepper plant, and it's classified just as an inflammatory agent. So it causes discomfort, irritant in the nasal passages and the lungs. It's the same active ingredient that's in pepper spray, and it's very pungent odor. You can smell it. Like if I shot one across the room, you could smell it over here. You could actually smell it. It's not going to have the strength that would be up close and personal, but you can definitely smell it and you know it's there. It kind of causes your throat to tingle a little. It's dried and it's a powder. Again, contamination, when we got to decon them, it's very minimal because it's just a powder. You basically just wipe it off. That's essentially what it comes down to. And like pepper spray is a little more sticky substance. You got to wash it off. Okay, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. I've been thinking about this all day, but it's basically, we just call it PAVA. It's a synthetic capsaicin, and it's still the same product from a pepper plant. So they make it, manufacture it, but it's still the same ingredients that comes from a pepper plant. The solid projectiles, these are the glass breakers. They're white in color. These are not for humans. We have actually a separate hopper that has tape and color on it that we know that's what it's for. So basically they can pop it on there, you can break a window, and then you can pull it off and you just put a pepper ball hopper back on. It's very quick and easy, and they're highly visible so the officers know which one they're using. So now this is kind of a little bit of comparison. Now a 40 millimeter, the kinetic energy is 90 foot-pounds at 60 feet. On a pepper ball, it's 7.3, 11 foot-pounds. You can see it's a lot lower. 40 millimeter launchers are more for distance and accuracy because it has a rifle barrel that makes it spin when it goes out. It has fin stabilized on some rounds, and then our direct impact ones, it starts to spin it, so it has a lot more accuracy. If I want to strike an object that's across the street, I have a lot more accuracy with a 40 millimeter launcher and more distance. It's like a greater distance type of weapon system. You can see the speed is pretty close, 355 to 300. 40 millimeter launchers are used in law enforcement and military settings. Pepper ball, just like a pepper ball gun. It's the same style setup that most of the kids and the adults go out in the fields and play pepper ball or paintball with. It's the same setup, essentially. It's just been designed for law enforcement. 40 millimeter, they're single shot, depending on the setup. Pepper ball, you do have the opportunity to do more volume, depending on what your problem that you're dealing with is. Basically, the way we teach our officers is a 1 second burst. So as fast as they can pull the trigger within 1 second, and that's it. So it's generally about 2 to 3 rounds before you reassess once you do that. Depending, again, if it's a crowd, there may be a lot more spread because you're trying to get a larger area covered. But if it's a direct impact on a subject, a combative subject, it's just about 2 to 3 rounds, and you kind of reassess the situation and see if you need more. And the way these work is that it's basically as fast as you pull the trigger, they go out. So that's why we set kind of that standard. We teach our officers that. Minimum safe range of a 40 millimeter launcher is about 30 feet. Direct impact is about 230 feet on the max range, but it's very accurate at that range too, compared to a pepper ball is going to start to wane off because it doesn't have the spin on the projectile. Direct impact on a pepper ball is a lot less, 60 feet kind of max, and then area contamination, if we just want to cover an area to keep somebody out of there or move a crowd out of there, it's about 175, 200 feet around there. The companies that run these and design these, they've done a lot of studies, they've paid a lot of studies to do it. They've actually had these guns put right up against a skin and pull the trigger and it won't break the skin. Now, yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable, it's going to hurt, but it won't break the skin. What we're doing is we're going to set it at 3 feet. It should be about basically an arm's length away from the subject or what you're striking, and that's kind of what we want to set our standards with, and we're going to teach our officers. Now, this is basically a definition of what it is. It's a kinetic energy weapon system. Any type of device designed as a less lethal to be launched from any device as a projectile that may cause bodily injury through the transfer of kinetic energy, blunt force trauma. This is coming right out of our policy. Good. Chemical agents. Any chemical that rapidly produce sensory irritation or disabling physical effects in human, which disappear within a short time following the termination of exposure. So this again is in our policy. Basically, kind of describes what the chemical agents are and the ones that we commonly use. Pepper ball only has PAVA style, that powdery irritant. That's all we would be using out of that weapon system, besides the training rounds and the glass breakers. Now this is our updated policy that's pending approval through you folks and the processes that we have in place. Circumstances appropriate for deployment, but are not limited to situations that suspects armed with a weapon, tactical circumstance allow for a safe application of approved munitions. The suspect has made credible threats to harm himself or others. Suspect is engaged in riotous behavior, throwing rocks, bottles, combative towards the officers, dangerous projectiles at people and our officers. There is a probable cause to believe that the suspect has already committed a crime of violence and is refusing to comply with lawful orders. This is some of the situations where we would be able to use a direct impact or an area denial. Again, I can explain both of those. An area denial is, I have a suspect in the corner of the room. I do not want him to go out that door, so I'm gonna put some pepper balls right around the door, which if he goes towards it, it's gonna be uncomfortable. So that's called an area denial. Now, direct impact is when we're aiming directly at the person trying to strike them. There's kind of a couple different ways we use these weapon systems. Same with the 40 millimeter launcher. Next. Considerations, this again is in our policy. Verbal warning before when feasible or safe. Familiarity with the manufacturer's recommendation regarding effective distances and target areas. Head and neck should not be intentionally targeted. That's pretty much across the board on all of our kinetic energy weapons. Training, proficiency training, we monitor and documented by a certified controlled device weapons tactics instructor. Sergeant Bishop. All training proficiency for control devices will be documented in the officer's training file. Again, they will get certified through a training class that we've been taught by the manufacturer, by a certified instructor. That'll go in their training file, and they will have follow-ups probably yearly. Yeah, yearly, for basically familiarization and go over the policy and know how to use the weapon system. Deployment considerations, these are things that officers have to, again, it's in the policy and officers have to be aware of. Distance and angle of the target, type of munitions employed, type of thickness of the subject closing, proximity to others, location of the subject, whether subject actions dictate the need for immediate response, and use of control device appears appropriate. These are some of the law enforcement agencies in California that are using them. This is just California. It's nationwide. It's hundreds of agencies that have been using them for a significant amount of time. And again, I want to reiterate, we're bringing these back. We had them years ago, but obviously the manufacturing issues that we kind of didn't overcome till now. So that's why we're trying to bring them back. It's another tool that we can use to de-escalate situations that doesn't cause injuries like other higher uses of force. Now, I got a little bit of feedback from one of the manufacturers. They didn't want me to put the agencies in there, but kind of talks about how they used them and how effective they were. They were able to entice 2 suspects out of a stolen U-Haul van with a pepper ball launcher. The suspect turned out to be armed, but could not defeat the irritant and gave up. That would have probably been an OIS with an officer if he came out with the weapon. You can kind of see. Another agency had a suspect barricaded in a closet. Officer was able to stand at a distance and deploy the projectiles at the base of the closet door. The irritant made its way under the door and ended up forcing the suspect out without any incident further. Another agency had a bunch of teens, early 20s, do a takeover, which we do have here in town as well. And at an intersection larger in the city, the launcher was used to disperse the crowd and clear the intersection. There was no negative feedback from the agencies to the manufacturer. Again, this is one of the manufacturers. Pepperball and Sabre are probably the 2 that we deal with mostly. This is the study I was talking about where they put the barrel of the launcher up to somebody's skin, pulled the trigger with a full tank, and it did not break the skin at 0 feet standoff. That means it's right up against their skin. Again, we are setting our standoff, our safe standoff, at 3 feet. Generally, it's just about an arm's length away from the target. This is our T&E proposal, which we're going to do. After certification training, they will deploy pepper ball launchers to personnel assigned to the Special Operations Division for 90 days. After, at that 90 days, we can either terminate it sooner or later, depending, or ask for an extended time period if we run into any problems or we want more data to look at to see how effective it is and how it's working. Once it's over, the program will be reevaluated amongst our command staff. If successful and appropriate, the program will be approved for further deployment, and any adjustments to policy and procedures will occur. When we do start this T&E, we have some directives we're going to put out that basically outlines what the officers are expected and the things that they can do with these weapon systems until the policy gets completely updated. I know it kind of went fast. Is there any questions that you guys are thinking of right now?
You said your officers will kind of sort of train annually?
No, they won't. I was looking at him, I thought it was yearly, but I wasn't sure if it was biannually. So every year they will retrain. They'll get certified initially. They'll go through a full class. It takes about 4 hours, I believe. It's a 4-hour class. 4-hour class. And then once a year during advanced officer training, they'll get a refresher course on the same weapon system. Yes, ma'am.
So this is a re-implementation of the tool they used previously, but you had to take out of usage due to some
Yes,
design
ma'am.
flaws?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It says that it's a special unit. I guess what is the number of teams or officer will be using this? And then I guess as a special unit, would it be like patrol officers, or I'm just curious how, like, in what instance will
I understand.
in this unit be called?
Special Operations Division. So that encompasses SOG, which is my detail, and then it has Impact, Special Enforcement Unit. I have SWAT on there too, which a lot of my SWAT guys that are based in patrol will be carrying them. I have 26 that we're going to deploy during this T&E. I have 30 total, but 4 of them we're going to keep just for backups in case something happens to one of them. but 26 are going to be deployed, and it's pretty much spread across the entire department. The reason I did Special Operations Division is because I'm in that division and I can kind of monitor and keep an eye on the T&E process. But they're spread out amongst it, so it'll be impact unit, which deals a lot with homeless and stuff. It'll be the gang unit. It'll be patrol. It's spread out clear across the department. Try to do it on every shift. I just want them out there so that we can see if it's effective, if it's working, if it's, you know, is it keeping higher uses forces down. That's the goal here, to try to de-escalate. The two things that it brings to us, distance and time, and that's what we're trying to buy with this. We're trying to buy the distance and time, which is effective for de-escalation. So that's what we're really trying to get out of this.
So officer need any permission, he need any permission to the like other officer or no, he can use any?
Only the one that they're assigned to, because they'll have to get the training.
Okay.
Yeah, if we did the whole department, it's kind of cumbersome and we don't have enough yet, so we're just gonna train the officers that will have them, and they'll be the ones that will carry them and deploy them.
So is there instructions like when they can use? So when they can certain point they use, there some any like a certain like their conditions like they can use now?
Does a sergeant have to say deploy?
Sergeant have to.
No, we don't have that in place at this point. Again, they have to justify everything they do. Just like the 40mm launcher, we don't have to ask a permission from a supervisor to use it. It's one of the tools that they're trained to use, and they'll deploy it when necessary, and they'll document it appropriately.
And in their after-action report, or whatever you call it, I'm sure they'll document the use of this tool.
Correct, yeah, it's just like any other use of force. It's a kinetic energy weapon system, just like the 40mm launcher. They'll document it just like normal. We will have our blue team use of force investigation that they will document everything, and then I get the case numbers and I'll keep a tally, and we'll see how effective it's being used, if it's being used appropriately, everything like that is going to be monitored. Yes, ma'am.
How would you compare it to a taser, like how it affects people?
Okay, so taser's a little different. It kind of causes the muscle incapacitation and stuff. These are going to, they make it uncomfortable. It's like pepper spray. I think that's kind of the easiest way to describe it. It's like pepper spray.
It's less dangerous.
Yes, and it has less kinetic energy than a 40. A 40 is better for longer distance. This is better, more appropriate in a shorter distance area. Or if you have to pump a lot of volume, that's where these come into play. A 40mm launcher is going to have a single shot. You have to reload, you know. So it's less foot-pounds, which, you know, in theory should cause less injury.
Right.
Yes.
So do you have any data from the previous use? My only question was like 90 days doesn't seem like a lot of
I
time
know.
for you to evaluate. So because this is a tool that may or may not be used
Correct.
for lengthy periods of time.
Yes.
So it might have to be extended. Your T&E might have to be extended in order to gather any.
Correct. Yes. And honestly, I wanted 6 months. I was told 90 days. So, but most likely, if we see the progression, if it hasn't been used that much, then yes, we will ask to extend it, because that's what we want. We want the data. We want to make sure that it's an effective tool. You know, and you know, just kind of a little side note: a 40mm launcher, they run about $2,000 a piece. The rounds, $25 to $35 a piece. You're talking about a Apollo round is about $1.78 a round, and the weapon system is about $750 to outfit an officer with one. So you see the cost is much cheaper,
Right.
and it should cause less injury because the foot-pounds is much lower, but it's just better for a shorter distance, but far enough away to keep that distance to help the officer with the de-escalation.
Are you using this evaluation time to establish whether you're going to maintain the use of the 40 and this, or maybe replace the 40 with this new?
No, that's not our intention. The
Okay.
40mm is definitely a system that we want to maintain because it's more precision weapon and it's for longer distances. We use them a lot in our tactical side of things because we can deploy flashbangs with it. We can deploy gas. We can deploy, in riotous areas. We can use it to. They have foam batons that can be fired. I mean, there's just so many different things. It's just a different system.
Okay.
So no, we're not trying to go away from that. We're trying to give another tool the officer can use that doesn't have as much foot-pounds. It's a little less injurious because it's for a close-up type tool, and it's very easy to decon it because it's powder. These things the powder is so fine, it's pulverized is the way they describe it. It's so fine that you can actually hit a window on a car around the edge that won't break it, and they will actually go into the car. It's so fine. So sometimes you don't even necessarily need to break the window. It just depends on the situation.
And so how does this differ as far as the time? Does it wear off quicker than OC spray? So
Yes.
So it dissipates much quicker. So how do you?
It's better in the more confined space too, because you get pepper spray in there. It's so pungent and it's a liquid. It doesn't dissipate as fast. The powder, once it settles, it kind of dissipates, and that's the key for a small confined area. It's much safer for officers as well as getting the compliance from the subject.
Joel, did you have a question?
Yes.
Yeah, why yearly training after somebody's been certified?
Because post requirements, actually you could probably answer that
So, and
better.
part of stipulated judgment too, part of stipulated judgment is that we train annually on all of our force tools, so all of our force options. Usually officers, they are required to attend post-certified training every 2 years, and that covers all their arrest and control techniques, so that's like their handcuffing, their searching, the way that they use control holds and things like that. But as far as all the force tools, there's a requirement in the judgment that every force option or force tool is trained on annually. So we'll make sure that it's trained annually, just like with the 40, just like with OC spray and tasers.
And somebody may not use it for a year or two, so it's familiarization again. It just gets them back in the habit of being able to use it effectively.
Is there any regular interval to inspect I know you don't want to call it a gun, the delivery tool or whatever you want to call it?
You talking about like checking it for malfunctioning, or
Just,
these are very basic. They have O-rings that will wear out, but each one of our instructors, I think we have 18 or 20 of them. We have quite a few that are certified instructors. They actually went through the armor school too, so they will check them out. Probably on our URI training is where we'll set that up, just to go through it, make sure everything's leaking, everything's working. You will know if it's leaking though, because the air pressure will start to drop real quick. So that's really all you have to worry about is that it's working, it's functioning properly, and that the air will hold and maintain.
and that's the O-rings.
Correct.
So-
There's like 2 O-rings that got replaced they said when they wear out, which could be 2 years or so,
If the ball like hit the head or somewhere, it still is like safe?
Yes, I mean, you gotta remember, a use of force incident is fluid. People are moving, it's not always like a standing target waiting. So it is possible. We tell them we don't want them to target those areas. But again, this is something that kids are playing with across town in the pep ball areas. Is it going to cause severe injury? Most likely no. But you talk about you can hit eyes, stuff like that. That's where we're trying to avoid those areas altogether.
So you trained officers trained for the don't hit it like they say.
Yeah, like here are the legs, that's kind of essentially what we're trying to strike. And these tools are so effective that you can actually just, if they're standing next to a wall, you can hit the wall, and the powder alone is gonna cause them some discomfort and probably most likely listen to what we're asking to do. So it doesn't even necessarily have to strike them. That's what's great about this system. Yes, I'm sorry.
Is this a system that you're hoping down the road to put in the hands of every officer?
I don't know about every officer, but yes, we would love to expand it, just to cover the patrol shifts, cover parts of town where it could be there a little bit faster on response times. And again, this could be a de-escalation tool. This could prevent us from having to use a higher level of use of force. So that's why I would rather every officer have one of these and use this mainly and not ever have to use their gun. That's the goal here. So I mean, you want to keep our use of force low, but we also need to gain compliance, and this is a tool that can help us do that. Yes.
Instead of you're gonna deploy them with the impact unit, including like the unhoused folks. I'm just curious, what is an instant of you will need to detain somebody who's unhoused and will have to deploy something like this?
Again, it depends on the situation, what that's presented to the officers. Just because they work in that doesn't mean they're not handling other calls in the city too. Yes, they primarily deal with the unhoused, but it's just another tool that they can use. If they have a combative subject that's either armed or is throwing stuff at the officers, this could be easily used and get them in custody without injuring them further. So that's essentially what it is across the board for everybody. So it just depends on the actions that the subject or suspect is presenting to the officers, which they have to decide what level of force they're using based on what they see. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess, you know, somebody who's already vulnerable, like our health community, which we're seeing, unfortunately, our population is growing. At least my interaction, it's been difficult to really get them to, like, listen, respond, and so I'm just wondering, like, in what instance will we have, you know, when officers are like, oh, well, they're not complying with whatever order, and it could be for many reasons, for different reasons, and so I'm just wondering, like, I guess, because they're not responding, they're not answering, they're not able to comprehend, I don't know, like.
Well, all these, oh yeah, go ahead.
So the impact unit is not, it's not being deployed to them specifically for dealing with them housed. So the impact unit falls under Lieutenant Dossey's division, so he can closely monitor it. The other benefit is those folks aren't dispatched to the regular calls for service. So if you call because your car got broken into, the impact officers aren't the ones that come out to deal with that. So they're more readily available to go help. You know, if an officer has somebody barricaded with a knife, then the impact guys and girls could just go over there and assist in that situation. Where other officers are also responding to all these calls for service, we have certain units that specialize in, like in this case with impact, it's dealing with unhoused. So they could be available to respond to that because they're not subject to the calls for service like a regular patrol officer.
So it gives them time to slow down and deal with the situation that a regular patrol officer may be called off.
Correct,
to-
yeah.
Good. Yes. And our impact units deal with the unhoused a lot. They're much more aware with those things that you're talking about, is maybe they're not responding, you know, maybe they're having a mental episode, something along those lines. They're much more trained than an average patrol officer because they deal with that all the time. So just because they have this doesn't mean that's the first tool they're going to use. It could be talking to them, it could be using distance. There's a lot of other, again, it depends on what's presented to the officer at the time. So a lot of decisions they have to make, right, you know, pretty quickly. All right.
Thank you, Rick.
Yeah.
You want to pass it around?
Yeah. Would you guys like to see them? I think we'll keep this one inside just so it doesn't break, but you can look at that. But I can give you some of the inert rounds. These won't harm anybody. It's just powder, so you can kind of feel it. Again, these are frangible, so when they strike something, they just burst.
So while you're looking at those, and I think, are you going to pass the launcher around too?
Yes, you can. This one has no air in it. Wait.
Come on.
No, where's John go?
Yeah,
Yeah, this one actually has air in it, but I want to make sure everybody can kind of see it. So I just don't want anybody to.
So while that stuff is all going around, in the email that I sent out to the CAP, I talked about readdressing public recording of a police officer. So after the CAP meeting last month, we went back to our office and gave it a second look to see what we could accept. And ultimately, did anybody look at the document that I sent out? Ultimately, I think it was all but 3, maybe 4. I can't recall. I got it that I can pull up. We were ultimately able to accept. Some of them were accepted with modification, but I think it's more inclusive of the community's input.
I'm afraid you guys will chew out like a gum.
So would you like to go through that list? Or did everybody have sufficient time to look at what was accepted and what the 3 or 4 that still were not accepted? Okay. I'll pull them up. So like I said in the email, I didn't want to do a whole presentation. All right, so
Later.
okay, so forgive me if I sit down while I'm talking about this, but we'll go through the changes, and we've got Detective Daddario here that can talk about some of the edits that were made to this also. Part of it was in our follow-up review. We tried to summarize some stuff here at the beginning. I think we captured everything, but I want to get down to where we started incorporating the input from, whose was it? So we want to start, or I want to start down here where we incorporated the CAPS input. So all the green is what we were ultimately able to accept. Like I said, some of it I'll switch over to the Excel document, but it was accepted with modification. But just showing, like, we were able to incorporate quite a bit with the recommendations. Let me know if you want me to stop. I just want to show this before I go to the Excel document. A lot of it was incorporating specific language from PC 69, PC 148. So let me go over to this Excel document. And unfortunately, I think this one I'm going to have to scroll also. So let me go to the ones that we were not able to accept. So this one here, so this recommendation was including verbiage
Could you
from.
enlarge that a little bit, Josh? Thank you.
There's a lot.
That's right, just read it.
It wants to shrink it back down when I move it over. Okay, so this one here was not accepted. This was a recommendation made to include verbiage from Penal Code 409.5 subsection D. And what that one talks about is public calamities like wildfires, flooding, and letting media in to those scenes. So we do talk about it. It's just covered under our media relation policy. So it's captured within our policy, just not in this one because this is specific to the recording of police actions. And 409.5D talks about getting into scenes of natural disasters. Sorry, I'm gonna scroll over and refresh my memory of what this one was. Okay, so this recommendation was to include more verbiage about search warrants and what you have to do after the fact when you search somebody's electronic device like their phone. So ultimately, that's all going to be covered under search and seizure. So kind of like the other one with 409.5, not a bad recommendation, just not applicable to this specific policy. This is more governing when an officer, that an officer has to let people record them unless they interfere with the investigation. Max, feel free to chime in if I misstated something. This one, I remember, I don't need to scroll over, it talked about third-party searches. At the Bakersfield Police Department, we don't use third-party searches. We have our own digital forensics unit that analyzes and takes evidence off of a phone. So it's all BPD employees that would be interacting with a seized device. This one was a recommendation to remove some language that talked about if an officer, I'll just read it. Where an officer believes that a bystander or witness has captured a recording of critical evidence related to a serious crime, the officer shall, and then it lists 3 things. The first is consult with the supervisor. The second is ask the recording person if she will consent to lend the recording medium to the officer temporarily so it can be viewed. And the third one is request the recording person upload the recorded material to evidence.com. We talked about evidence.com within the last couple months. I can't remember what topic it was. But so if somebody has video evidence, even if it's not against an officer, if it's, they have video evidence of a break-in at their house, no longer do we have to like come take your DVR or anything like that. We give you a link, and then you can upload the video to that link. So we don't have to handle your device, you keep your device. So in this case, the guidance to the officer is, if somebody has a recording that they're willing to share, you can simply just, the third option there is give them the link and they'll upload the video themselves to the Bakersfield Police Department's evidence.com, which is a digital storage. So this one's actually partially accepted.
Josh, just for clarification,
Yeah.
purple means modified, red means not, and then green is,
Purple means like when we went back and reviewed it, we decided to reword it to summarize things a little bit more concisely. So red
I
is.
just forgot the color coding.
Yeah. So red is, well, actually I take that back because I think the part that I tried to summarize a little bit better, I think I still marked that out in red. But if there's not purple above it, then red means it was a CAP recommendation to remove it. So this one, I marked it not accepted, but it actually is accepted with modification. But part of the recommendation was to essentially wait until a supervisor is on scene. I think that could work in some circumstances, but not all circumstances. Not always can an officer postpone seizing something until a supervisor is there. But we were able to incorporate some of the language. And then the supervisor response is captured in policy 437.7.
Josh, could you repeat the way you just said that? It sounded like I heard that an officer can't postpone seizing.
Can't always. Yeah. So in an ideal circumstance, that would apply, but it can't always apply.
Okay, but
That
it can't seize it without a warrant, right?
there would be times for exigency. Yeah. So and then remember, I think it was with public recording we talked about freezing, right?
Yes, correct.
So, like, if there is evidence on somebody's device and they don't want to give it to us, we could take it and hold on to it but not search it, while another officer goes and authors a warrant, gets it approved by a judge, or presents it to a judge for approval. And then we would go back after that and serve the warrant to the person that owns the phone, search for the evidence on it, and then return it to them.
Those warrants, the language contained in a warrant for digital evidence is not ambiguous. It doesn't entitle us to free access to your phone and all your private records. We have to convey to a judge we have a very specific evidentiary interest in that phone. So just because your phone is subject to a search warrant does not mean that we will frivolously access your private information.
So this one, I thought that what we had in there offered good guidance to our officers. And I know it was partially touched on in another section of this policy, but what it says is, persons who violate legal restrictions should be informed that they are engaged in prohibited activity and given information on acceptable alternatives when appropriate prior to making an arrest. And I included in here some guidance on using landmarks like we talked about in the initial presentation from Detective Daddario. So instead of just saying, scoot back, saying, you know, please go to the door, you can film me from there, you're fine, but just scoot back to the door. Because we all have different guesstimations of distances. So there was some additional guidance on trying to use landmarks when possible, like a sidewalk or a tree. And then the last one was, there was a recommendation about including information about the freezing that Detective Daddario talked about in the initial presentation. So kind of like the other two, that will live in our search and seizure policy, which ironically we're going to talk about here in a minute. So not a bad recommendation, just applicable to make sure it's captured in the search and seizure policy. I know that was super fast, but that's partially because I want to get to the meat and potatoes of the search and seizure policy. Does anybody have any questions? And feel free, if you haven't had time to thoroughly review it, send me an email if you have something that concerns you. And then next we have search and seizure. Was what I put in the agenda clear about, like, we're going to break that up over 2 months?
You don't want to go through the whole thing.
Yeah, that's we'd be here late, I think. So I put in the pages, I think it's page 1 through 14, and then the specific sections. So we have Detective Daddario visiting us again, and then Sergeant Keegan Gavin. They are our two, not even two leads, you guys are the only ones, right? So the two of them are our project team for making the revisions to search and seizure. So they're going to take over from here. You want me to pull up the policy on here?
I'll do an intro if you do that.
Okay, perfect.
Hello again, folks. So unfortunately, you'll be seeing me probably at least 2 or 3 more times before you're rid of me. But this particular policy is the more voluminous policy that I've been assigned to. I would argue that second to use of force alone, it's probably the most pivotal policy that a peace officer is confronted with. I've been assisted in large part, actually I've been assisting Sergeant Gavin, who's the main lead on the project and has authored our policy as it stands now. It is probably one of the most evolved, straightforward search and seizure policies you'll encounter in law enforcement today by virtue of being the leading edge of the stipulated judgment. So what I'll do is I'll just briefly go over our template, and I'll have Sergeant Gavin introduce kind of the purpose and scope of the policy. But what we're going to experience today is after Sergeant Gavin covers purpose and scope and some of the guiding philosophies of our policy, we're going to have a guided discussion aided in part by 2 scenario-based questions. One scenario question is going to be closed-ended. It's going to be ask and answer only. It's just to kind of get you engaged with the policy in front of you. We all have a copy of the policy, correct? Okay. You'll be called upon to refer to the policy. We'll kind of test your knowledge, not adversarially. We just want it to help further the discussion. You'll be asked questions as to what parts of our scenario pertain to which policy, how the officer's actions are governed, and after the closed-ended scenario question, we'll have a series of evolving scenario questions where you'll have circumstance 1, which will turn into circumstance 2, 3, and 4, etc. Each one will touch upon a specific guiding value of the policy and call upon you to say, oh, you know, that action is governed in this policy. But again, we're learning together, and we chose this method of instruction because at the academy level, this is exactly how our officers learn search and seizure. It's such an evolved concept that you have to pull them along through scenarios. This isn't something you can just simply read black and white text and extract how to apply search and seizure. So that's the modality we chose to go with. It's super friendly. It should be educational. I think it'll probably evolve into a lot of good discussion. But I'll step down for a minute and I'll introduce my lead, Sergeant Gavin, to go over the guiding values.
How you guys doing today? So the search and seizures want to kind of go over how can we provide you kind of step by step through our policy. And I just want to give you some clarity on how we developed it and what we're looking at. The first part of our policy is you can break our policy down to about 6 different parts. The first part is the purpose and scope, which explains what the purpose of the policy and what is just the overall guidance we're giving to our officers, which you can summarize as we want to protect individual rights from search and seizure while still producing effective policing. And we're governed, and reiterate in that part of it, that we're governed by the Fourth Amendment, and we're following the Constitution, the state Constitution and the federal Constitution. And that's the first part of our policy. After that, we have a general policy, which a lot of those, you can almost look at them as like directives or they're bullet points where we give guidance to our officers. And those policies, you can find throughout the rest of the policy as well. However, we want to bring them to the forefront to just highlight those specific policies for anybody who's looking at our policy and for officers. After that, we broke it down. So for example, today we're going to talk about search of a person and search of a vehicle are our two major topics we're going to talk about today. And they kind of go hand in hand. That's why we're presenting them today, because usually if there's a search of a vehicle, it's probably a search of a person. So it's a little different when it comes to resident searches. So in the policy, it will go the purpose and scope, and it will go to general, just directive or general, which include our definitions. We want to highlight certain definitions that we're going to talk about so we understand, if you're reading the policy, you understand what we're talking about later on. And then it goes to search of a person, and what our policies are regarding the search of a person. And then it goes to search of a vehicle, and then it goes to a search of a residence. And after all those searches, those are our main searches, we talk about supervision and how are we going to supervise as a department, what do we expect for our supervisors, and how we're going to audit and track what we're doing to make sure we're conforming to the stipulated agreement, or just we're conforming to the policies and make sure that we're not having, it's kind of like the use of force auditing, and that's how we kind of set it up on. We incorporate a working group in case we find some failings within the department or we see things that we need to work on. We have a working group that can identify that for training and guidance throughout further on in the policy. And that will be the last part of the policy, is the supervision and the auditing. And so that's how we kind of broke it up. Also, when you read the policy, if you look at it for the search of a person, or even in general, we talk about stops, because first you have to stop, and then after the stop usually comes the search. And so the first part of the policy will talk about the stop and what justifies a stop. Is it lawful stop? And when can you stop a car? When can you stop a person? And the second part of that particular part of the policy will talk about searches. So the stop comes first, and then the searches come second. And so as you're reading the policy, that's how we kind of went by it. So search of a person, when you stop a person, how can you stop a person? When can you stop a person? And then searches, when can you search a person? What governs that? And so I just wanted to give you kind of overview of how we wrote the policy and what you're kind of looking at. And I know that was kind of in the PowerPoint, but it's a little deeper, more information on that. And from here, we're going to go into our scenarios that we came up with. And you touched on the point of the scenarios is to kind of walk through it together and identify in the policy, make sure it's covered in the policy. And if you guys have comments, that we can talk about where it's covered and where we can identify that.
All right, you folks ready? Okay, so our first scenario. An officer observes a male subject traveling in a low-income neighborhood and initiates a traffic stop on his vehicle, saying that he looked out of place. He then commences to search the subject's person and vehicle without justification. Where in our policy is such a stop governed, and what would we call it?
Wait, can you repeat that again?
Absolutely. So,
in the first part, this scenario is we're looking at the general policy, the first part of the policy. Okay, so this is going to cover somewhere else, like for vehicle searches, but we're looking at general policy and how we covered this in our general, we addressed this issue in our general search and seizure policy, just the first part of it.
So
The very beginning.
okay.
let's repeat. So, an officer stops a male subject in a low-income neighborhood for a traffic violation, saying he looked out of place, and proceeds to search his vehicle and person without any articulable facts or for any lawful reason. Where in general policy is this addressed?
Arbitrary.
Outstanding, perfect, yes. This policy, one of the bits of low-hanging fruit that we wanted to cover in this policy's new evolution was the prohibition of arbitrary searches, which are essentially searches acted upon due to an officer's bias or preconceived notions. If I get the question.
But it's unlawful, right?
Yeah,
Look,
so
no.
it's a search based on, it's defined, and
It's defined in here as.
Yeah,
an
it's
officer.
also in three, but it's a law officer.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
It says very clearly, like, and a definition, but it says like, both
Mhm.
ways.
Yes,
But
so,
these are the searches that are unlawful, it should not be, yeah.
Correct.
I was like, wait, this.
It's just defined as.
and to further your
Without the written policy, you have key phrases like, they look like they belong in that neighborhood. You said the person didn't look like he belonged in that neighborhood. That's a red flag right there.
well, yeah, this question's a very low law question. I do not anticipate anyone in this room would have estimated that's a law.
Part of the term search is it's just not a lawful search. It searches the biases of the officer. And so in this scenario, you want to pull out that the arbitrary search is not unlawful, which we put in there, so it's kind of the key word, but also the bias of the officer is up front in here as well, which we are prohibiting, and it's one of the main ones in our general policy that we up front of.
I'm curious, do you guys run this scenario with officers retraining? Because I'm curious, like, how many will say like, oh, yeah, you know, it happens more than it's documented. But then also, I guess, a question, even for this arbitrary unlawful stop, the officer's required to document it, right? Or
Yes,
is it
all stops are
data?
documented.
So every stop, we will go through the documentation of any stop and search is documented, is required. It's also, when we did the PowerPoint, we talked about where the search and seizure is located at, right? It's several policies have search and seizure. I mean, search and seizure affects almost everything in the police department. But documentation, a lot of that is required by the stop data report that we have to do. So every stop, every seizure, every search we do is collected through the stop data report, and a lot of that documentation will be found in that policy. But we require, if you search or see or stop somebody, some kind of documentation, which can be found in that policy.
And I am curious, I don't know if you will know this off the top of my head, like, based on that data, like, how many arbitrary stops that were documented, although we know that it's unlawful, was reported, like, I don't know, in the last year?
I don't have that data.
That's why we're retraining officers, because there's too many arbitrary, maybe, I don't know.
There's not usually not the officers. I could check a box saying I could take an arbitrary search.
I mean, he's just admitting.
That is something that would be found somewhere else, and it probably
in your citizen complaints about those type of stops, wouldn't it be?
It could, that would be if they were complaining about the stops. But part of our later on in the policy, we'll talk about auditing and our auditing process that we're implementing, which is it's minimal. We talk about auditing in this policy. However, it's also that will be found in the stop data reports and the other auditing policies that are coming into play, and the other processes the department is developing or implementing too. So like the stop data reports, everything that we do annually, all those things, that's where we're looking for that kind of data. And this policy, this arbitrary search, we're just presenting the fact that we're prohibiting it, we're looking at it, and we're codifying it in the policy.
Right.
That you cannot do it.
And your concerns being what they are, we recognized that months ago when we started writing it, which is why the topic of arbitrary searches is covered so early in the policy, because it's everyone's point of contention, so we wanted to put it right in the front, so there can be no mistake. All right, ready? So this next scenario-based question, I'm going to provide you with an initial scenario, and it's going to be the same scenario for all the follow-on questions. We're just going to tweak little bits about it, okay? So if you need me to repeat this, just please let me know. So this scenario is titled "The Taillight Out." At 9:45 p.m., Officer BPD observes a car with a broken taillight and initiates a vehicle stop. The vehicle has 2 occupants, a driver and a passenger. Officer BPD approaches the vehicle. And this first phase of the question is called our initial contact. So I'll prompt you to think about it. You approach the car. What is it that you say first pursuant to our policy? Do you say A, step out of the car right now? B, license and registration with no explanation? Or C, good evening. You were stopped because of your broken taillight. My name is Officer BPD.
See, that one,
C, right.
We won't expect that, we'll see.
Again, these grow in complexity, and you'll see as these questions evolve, there's black and white, and then there's gray. And for those of us who typically occupy like corporate style environments, gray is a unique concept. It's difficult to believe that things that would be completely appropriate and acceptable in one scenario all of a sudden do not apply at all in a scenario that's only slightly different. But I encourage you, so like when you think of these questions, put yourself in the shoes of an officer alone at night on a traffic stop and let that guide your decisions, okay?
Max, can you explain what you mean by gray?
Yeah.
Yes, so you will see as we progress through the scenarios that that answer you just gave, there are circumstances you can encounter in the world of law enforcement where you wouldn't say that because it could put you at risk. So I want to let it evolve organically on its own throughout these questions, but we'll get you there.
Wait, the answer C? What do
So
you mean?
the super formal, hi, I'm officer so-and-so, you can all probably imagine a scenario you've seen on TV where if the officer had initiated the contact that way, it would have seemed probably kind of foolish. Like I said, let the questions guide you there, and if you still don't understand towards the end of it, we'll talk about it at length.
So
It's not a yes or no answer.
the first part of this question is, we're talking about, is that C is like an obvious question, right? However, that's found in our policy now. We put that in policy. I don't know if you guys can, find it, but part of the policy is, that's like, yes, like we say that, but we actually codify it in the policy, what the officer's supposed to say and how they're supposed to interact with the public or during car stops.
Is it point 4?
Yes, 312.7 through 12.4.
It's also, it's point 4 is found in 1 and 2, right? Because we have to, part of it is telling the person why they're stopped, and then the second part of it is identifying us as police officers, name, rank, and by name and rank, who we are.
We all ready for phase 2? Okay, so same scenario, 9:45 p.m., traffic stop for a broken tail light, driver and passenger. Okay, so upon contacting the driver, you notice the driver is verbally abusive and is uncooperative and does not provide ID. What do? Do you A, do nothing and let them leave without issuing a citation? B, continue to argue with the driver from the window? C, ask the driver to exit the vehicle?
C. C.
Okay. Why'd you say C versus B?
So you don't know that maybe how dangerous that one is not doing you ID, maybe, I don't know. The officer want to be safe, right?
Well, you just want to have them visible.
Yeah.
Right, it's a safer environment,
Safer
correct?
environment.
Yes, so at the academy level, we teach that, or it's my personal philosophy that I give people the best police service when I feel safe. And if you continually force me into an unsafe scenario, I only tend to be more blunt with my commands. You don't get the human side of me. Now, removing a subject from the vehicle, it does put me in a safer position of advantage, because whatever's in that vehicle, should he have means to access a weapon, I'm decreasing the likelihood that's going to happen by removing him from the vehicle. It's also for their safety as well. We all know that people in this town sometimes have difficulty driving, and red and blue lights don't always deter people from taking that lane of travel. So if I make a stop in a high traffic freeway, like say the shoulder of the 99, I'll probably just, for the sake of the person's safety, hey, can you accompany me to the shoulder just so we don't get sideswiped by a semi while we're talking? You say that because it's happened. But yeah, so C is the appropriate answer. And this is addressed in policy 312.7, which is removing occupants from vehicles. Excuse me, 312.7, item number 5. And additionally, it's covered under subsection A, refuse to identify driver versus passenger.
Because you have that is, the driver has to identify themselves, right? Has to.
Yes,
provide
if they're,
us.
and if they
It's the
refuse,
driver.
so even for the sake of a misdemeanor citation, if the subject of the citation refuses to identify themselves, they will be taken before a magistrate and they will be booked. So,
But per the vehicle code, that the drivers of a vehicle in violation of the vehicle code violation shall provide their identification to the police officer.
And in this instance, it will be just the driver, right? Not because the passenger, I guess I'm just going through the scenario. The stop was made, the officer approached, and even after saying like, I stopped you because of your tail light or whatever, and then you're saying that in this scenario, the driver was competitive and wasn't, disregarding that, not cooperative, and that's when you guys proceed to move out of the vehicle, right?
correct.
But it's only with the driver. It's not that the ID or any identification was requested for any other passenger.
At this point, I said we didn't request any identification. And part of the policy that talks about refusing to identify and when we can remove someone from a vehicle as well. So in the policy that we identified, we talk about when we can remove somebody from a vehicle, an officer can remove somebody, what rights does the officer have when we do a stop. So when we stop a vehicle, everybody in the vehicle is detained, okay? So the officer can tell people in the car, hey, stay in the car or exit the car, right? And so everybody in that car, they're not free to leave at that point because it's a vehicle stop. Okay, so now we're identifying why you have someone exit out of the car, or in what circumstances can you do all these things. And that's where we're finding out in the policy, we identify in 312.5, number 5, where it talks about removing the car, and also talks about the identity of the driver if they refuse to provide their information.
So if the driver say, oh, I forgot my wallet, or I don't have the identification, but this is my name, and the officer can pull, right?
Yes, we do have the means, especially if we have a backup officer present.
Like a source, you can pull his name or that kind of stuff, right?
Yes.
It can't possibly, right? We can pull, if they have a driver's license, we can pull it up and look up if the systems are working. We have the ability to look up driver's license and their photographs to compare them.
Yeah. This
So
one,
it is
it's a very
potentially-
common, like how sometimes we don't have the wallet with me. This, you know, you are going across the street, you don't have wallet with you, or something.
Correct, in this scenario, we're talking about, he wouldn't even provide his name.
Yeah,
right?
provide the name, or they can pull that.
All right, only gone to phase 3. Let's keep this thing going. So, phase 3 is titled Search of the Person. So again, same scenario, driver, passenger. So now you've asked the driver to step out, and upon stepping out, you see a bulge in his waistband. Do you A, conduct a pat-down search for weapons, B, ask to search his pockets with your BWC recording, or C, ignore the bulge entirely? B, we have B over here. Anyone else have anything different?
Can you read it again?
Yes, so you've asked the driver to step out, and upon stepping out, you observe a bulge in his waistband. Do you A, conduct a pat-down search for weapons, B, ask to search his pockets, or C, ignore the bulge?
I would conduct a pat-down because according to your policy, you've already detained him for an investigative purpose, and you've noticed a bulge.
Which, 100% correct. And that bulge is what we call articulable suspicion, which would warrant the pat-down search for weapons. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay.
And you guys can see as the policy, we write it, and we're talking, right, we're talking about a vehicle stop, but now we have to talk about search of a person as well. That's what we're doing together. So different areas of the policy kind of covers this. So pat-down searches in our policy will cover a search of a person. It's typically called a Terry stop or a search for weapons, right? So it's not a full search when we search somebody in this incident, but if we're pulling them out of the car and now we see the bulge and we can articulate, okay, this person might have a weapon, I don't know, I can't exactly say what it is. In the policy, if they can articulate these things, you can do a limited search for weapons. And they can usually call it an officer safety search, a pat-down search, a Terry search. Those are different terms they use for this type of search. And so at that point, if they can articulate, the officer can articulate those facts, the policy is saying we can use that type of search to search for weapons only. That means you can't go in the pockets. It's an outer search of a person, and it's usually we teach in the academy, we teach the search, it's a grabbing motion. It's not like pulling out, you can't go in the pockets. It's a grab motion, looking for a gun, a knife, brass knuckles, whatever you think can be used as a weapon, that's what this search and the reasoning for this search is used. And when you read the policy, that's how, so you go from a search, pulling somebody out, now we have a person search, and it's in the same policy, but little different areas in the policy that we cover again.
But after the pat down, if you couldn't identify that whatever that bulge was not a weapon, you just drop it there. You don't continue to search the backpack, the vehicle and stuff, right? It's just, this was what caused me to pat you down. Now it's clear, I proceed to cite you.
Correct. You could complete the traffic stop, whatever the traffic stop is, right? So right now, and just in this scenario now, I'm pulling someone out because he's uncooperative, possibly something going on here with him. There's some officer safety concerns going on at this point. So we pull him out, and then he gets a bulge that search him. He doesn't have a weapon, right? Now I remove him from the vehicle because vehicles, it puts officers at a disadvantage because they can hide things, weapons, anything in the vehicle. I can't see what's going on. most people in Bakersfield has 10, at least on the back window, so I can't see what's going on in the back. They have, where I'm at a disadvantage by standing and looking in, and something can happen, right? So that, we pull them away from the vehicle and get them away from the danger zone, we can say, when we believe where he could get your weapon. He doesn't have a weapon on him, so now we put him to the side, usually he sit down on the curb or something like that, where now he's still detained, but now I still gotta finish the traffic stop, like you said, right? It doesn't mean I can go search everything, right? It just means I can just do a safety search of his person, and now I can finish my traffic for whatever violation he was stopped for initially.
And speaking from experience, I can tell you that at this point in the contact, whatever arguments he had at the window, this is when I address them. The time to try to get into a semantic argument with someone is not through the window when we're combative and I'm at a disadvantage. But now you've cooperated with me, I've searched you, I feel safe, now I address your concerns. That's typically how I like to operate. It's kind of a give and take. All right, so the next question. This involves the passenger. So you notice that the passenger on the traffic stop is fidgety and looks nervous. Do you A, leave him in the vehicle, B, ask him if he would exit the vehicle and ask for his identifiable information, or C, order him out of the vehicle and ask for his ID? This one's gonna make you think.
We're governed by our policy, we're
Just because he
bring
looks
back the
fidgety
policy.
and
I know, I was gonna say fidgeting, maybe if they were. Yeah,
Because, you know, most people are nervous just if they, if you.
I fidget around cops.
yeah,
I get nervous.
yeah.
So what are we going with?
Can you repeat again the question?
Yes, so the options are, do you leave him in the vehicle, ask him if he would exit the vehicle and ask for his identifiable information, or C, order him out and ask for his ID?
I think I would wanna know more about what do you mean by fidgeting, because it was just like, oh, fidgeting.
Yeah,
I was like, leave him alone, because maybe he just needed to straighten himself up or something, but if
Aren't they
it's.
supposed to keep their hands somewhere where you can see them if they're fidgeting? Like, it depends on the level of fidgeting.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, so.
Says they have a right to refuse to identify themselves in number 5.
Then please be a designated fidgeter.
Yeah, you're fidgeting.
So I'm an officer and he's a passenger, and I'm here watching him.
Yeah, no, well, yeah.
Yeah, that's not
They wouldn't call that
fidgeting.
fidgeting. That's much more
You're
than
pulling
fidgeting.
something that
Fidgeting just means you're moving.
Fidgeting is like.
Now, do you ask him out or do you order him?
Try to order them out at that point.
Order him out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could you ask him out?
Yeah.
You want to step out of the car?
I think he's married.
I'm sorry. I don't like.
You could do
I've
either
been
way.
under simulations before. I look like I got shot so many times. Those things, like, I don't.
And nervous, and when we say nervous too, you're saying people get nervous with officers, right? But there's different kinds of nervousness. There's a kind where I'm like scared of an officer just because I made a prior contact with them, whatever my past history with law enforcement. And there's also nervous as I'm trying to get out of here and looking for exits. There's been circumstances you can tell this dude or person is going to run or try to get out of here, and you got to take that into consideration. So just when we say nervous, I mean, it depends on what this person's doing. If I'm here, maybe open the door, put my foot out before I say anything, and is looking around, it just looks like something's going on, okay? The point is, he's detained, in our policy for this one, he's detained pursuant to the car stop. And for officers, say, if I can articulate these things that are going on, what I'm seeing, he's fidgeting, reaching around the vehicle, I don't know what's going on. And does it being at nighttime, you guys think it affect what's going on, what I'm gonna do?
Visibilities.
It's 9:45 at night in Bakersfield. And a lot of places don't have a lot of streetlights too. It's dark. And then I can't see in the car. It makes my visibility in the car limited. And so we give, in the policy, we talk about when they can remove people from the vehicle. And that's one of the times where we can remove them and have them come out of the vehicle. And so we can attain, for officer safety purposes, at that point.
So Detective Daddario talked about the gray area, right? What he's talking about is policy and writing a policy that's able to be applied to a variety of scenarios. So that was pretty extreme, like the fidgety. But what if I'm just like doing this?
And before, I like to remind people, look at what's being asked of the officer to do his sworn duty. If the traffic stop in question is something where the vehicle code says the officer shall issue a citation, he's married to a process that takes about 5 minutes of his attention being diverted onto a tiny little notepad that he's probably going to illuminate with some sort of small chest flashlight. when it's me doing that at nighttime, I need to be 100% sure I can do it safely. So that does not look like one person over here, one person in the car fidgeting, me on my little notepad trying to remember what vehicle code this is off the top of my head. But both occupants exited, perhaps seated on the curb, in my plain view, in my peripheral at least, I can accomplish that citation way more comfortably. So, yes, ma'am.
About the right to refuse to identify, when does that apply?
No, so, and that's why if you look at the way the answers are structured, it says order him out, but ask for his ID. So you can still govern the people that are seized pursuant to the traffic stop, but they don't have to give you the ID.
Okay, that's what I was trying to find the difference.
If you look at number 5, we talk about right to refuse to identify if you're a passenger and what their rights are, because the vehicle violation, the vehicle code specifically talks about the driver providing identification and not the passenger.
So they don't have to like give you ID, they just have to get out of the car.
Correct. So they're still detained right at that point, but their identification, they're not required statutorily to provide that information to us.
Okay. Phase number 5, passenger interaction. So you've ordered the passenger out, he exits the vehicle. He too has a bulge in his waistband. Do you A, conduct a pat down for weapons, B, ask to search his pockets, or C, ignore the bulge? Pat down, correct. Now, caveat to this one, just to get you thinking. What if there is no bulge, but the subject is adorned in incredibly baggy clothing? A still?
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah? Good. I can get the sense you folks are putting yourself in the shoes of the officer. That's good. I like that.
And part of it is the officer, in our policy, we specify you have to articulate, the officer will have to articulate that search. So it's not good enough to say I searched him for officer safety. We're putting in policy saying that you have to say that, my Jack, you can't probably even see that I have a gun sometimes on my side of it, right? The officer will have to explain, I didn't just search him for officer safety, I did it because I couldn't see his waistband. He had a baggy jacket, and I searched him, a quick search for officer safety for weapons because I couldn't see what was going on.
And I think the policy says that, like, you shouldn't pat down if they're wearing tight clothes or, you know, clear clothes, like, where you visibly can tell they're not carrying a weapon.
Correct.
Right. That, you know, females that wear leggings, I can clearly see there's no articulable threat. I would forego a pat down. I could err on the side of caution with confidence that they're probably not containing a weapon.
Guy gets out, a male gets out of the car, it's hot, ready for summer, has no shirt on, the pants or shorts on, you can see he has no weapon on. I don't need to search his waistband to see that he has nothing on him, right? And so the spirit of this in our policy is for officer safety. However, it's not just, we want the officer in our policy, they have to specify what that means to them and what they're articulating. It's articulable facts. So you have to articulate facts to get to that point where you can search them.
All right, phase 6, arrest and search incident. So at this point in the traffic stop, you have the driver and passenger removed from the vehicle. You've obtained driver's identifying information. Now, what is muscle memory for officers on a traffic stop is we will run a records check on the driver, essentially any identified person on the stop for wants or warrants, also their license status. So for this phase, dispatch confirms the driver has a warrant. You place him under arrest. Do you A, conduct a full search before transport? B, wait until he's at booking to search him? Or C, skip the search if he seems cooperative?
Search him.
Search
Well, I
him?
mean, wouldn't it
Search
be,
incident to arrest.
Correct.
well, wouldn't it be, you know, if he has a, you say he has a warrant?
Correct.
Would that mean that there's like, he's on probation and there is some clause allowing for search, or anyone with any warrant is always allowed to be searched?
If I'm arresting you, I'm searching you. And that's just not, it's not, the goal of that search is still safety oriented. It's not to try to expound upon charges, although that will happen. The courts have a philosophy called inevitable discovery, which is where if I'm searching you incident to arrest, the court recognizes that I am required to search the entirety of your person before booking you into the jailing facility. So any incriminating evidence I locate during the course of that search is admissible in court pursuant to inevitable discovery because it's my duty to search you. I do that for the safety of the deputies at the jail. I do that for the safety of myself during transport. An officer would be remiss if he didn't search someone before putting him in the back of his car. And if you spend some time on YouTube, you'll see a lot of officers get killed because they don't do that search. There's been instances where people have firearms very well contained on their person They retrieve them in the back of the patrol car and they shoot through the glass and kill the officer. It's something we take very seriously here, and in my training phases as a rookie, I was taught that ad nauseum. You always search pursuant to the arrest.
Or they can bring illegal items into the jail, which then results in charges. So there's a lot of reason, right, to
Yes.
So,
search.
and also, when we talk about searching into arrest, it has to be custodial arrest. So just because you have a warrant, you might have a misdemeanor warrant, we decide to release you, we don't get to search you, and it's in here. And we talk about it in a policy, is it has to be custodial arrest. That means you have to be transported to a jail, detox facility. They talk about the school for a juvenile, right? So if we're taking them back to school, if they're delinquent, and they're gonna drive them to school, then we search the person or anything that goes with it. So that's the caveat to this. If we're booking them on their warrant, we will search them prior to any transportation, which is in our policy. And then from there, right, we search them before they even get in the car for what Detective already said. So even before we leave and we go anywhere, if they're under arrest, we search them.
Additional caveat pertaining to property, can you then search his vehicle if he's under arrest?
Not without a warrant.
He had direct control over things that were in his, before you pulled him out, so those items could still remain there.
Again, this is where we get gray.
Yeah.
Where is the vehicle? Is it someplace where it would be legally parked if left unattended? Do I have to tow it because of where it's at? Those two answers guide you in totally different directions. If the arrest is made pursuant to simply a warrant with no open charges, I may not search the vehicle. If the vehicle has to be towed because it's in the middle of the lane on 99, then yes, for the sake of the safety of the tow truck driver, I will perform a search of that vehicle, a vehicle inventory.
And it's governed in our policy. We talk about searching to arrest of vehicles are specific. So this is the last kind of thing we'll say on it for time has come short. But when you read the policy, there's specific guidelines where it talks to provide officers when you can do that when it's searched into arrest. Because there's different reasons why we can do a search of vehicle, but like you said, a warrant. Every search is, you have to have a warrant unless you have an exception to the warrant rule. There's only two types of searches, warrant search and warrantless search. You have to have an exception that's been carved out through the courts. And part of that is search into arrest, but they've made it very specific when we can do it and when we can't. And we talk about that in our policy as well for search, and that will be found under vehicle searches. Okay, and part of the exercise is when you guys read the policy, look at it again, you'll see that reason we do stops, then we do searches, right? So stops come before searches, but there's different areas, different rules apply to vehicles than people and residents. And so that's why we broke it up the way we did.
You can also,
Vehicle exception. Oh, okay.
you can also, if you walk by the door of the car and you saw something that's illegal.
Yes, outstanding,
Again,
yes.
that would also be another exception to require a warrant in this situation.
That's
Vehicles
correct.
are, if you read it, vehicles are, it's kind of unique because you can search, if you have enough information to get a search warrant, you can search a vehicle pursuant to the vehicle exception. And we detail exactly when the officers can do that and how that they can conduct that search. Just like it's into arrest one, and when you can't do it as well, search into arrest. Because just because the warrant was, he had a warrant, if there's no information that it was just like an old warrant and he's going to jail, it doesn't give me the immediate authority to search that car. And then also it depends where, and the policy will explain a passenger car in the car is the front of the car. I can't search the whole car, right? But in a different search authority, I can search the whole car. So we explain that all, and then we go through detailed when officers and try to guide them through all these topics and these different search and seizures.
I know we're gonna pull a stop shortly, but we started with the scenario with the vehicle stop, but because I've heard, testimonies of people who are unhoused and on the streets who are approached by law enforcement. And so I guess, I'm sure we will talk about, searching people, but it's specifically in the scenarios of like unhoused folks and why or what will merit somebody to run a check on them, and then if they find a warrant, then they are arrested. Just because we're seeing a lot more of that interaction, unhoused folks interacting with law enforcement. So I'm just curious to
If you look at why we can even detain somebody, so we can ask anybody their name information if we're doing a consensual contact. If I walk up to you and ask your name and information, as long as I'm not detaining you or demanding things from you, because think about search and seizure. If I go up to you and say, hey, can I have your name? You say, yeah. But I say, hey, stop. What's your name? That makes it from a consensual encounter to a detention. And so it depends on what type of contact you're making. And then if the reason for the contact, is it a call for service? Is there a municipal code violation that these individuals you're talking about are committing? There's different reasons why we contact somebody in that context. So you'd have to, it depends on the contact and the context of that interaction, which if you're those questions, you can find reasons why we contact people on the street under persons. It'd be under the first let stops. When can you stop somebody? Or when can I detain somebody on the street? That's found in the person's search stops. And then when can I search them? It'll be immediately after that, where it talks about searching individuals. That's where you would find that information.
So I wanted to be faithful to, Kathleen brought up a request, and I think everybody agreed with clearing some time at the end of the meeting for community issues. If any CAP members have issues that have come up over the last month to share with us, just to establish that conduit of back and forth. If nobody has anything, I'm more than happy to, we can continue the Q&A with Detective Daddario and Sergeant Gavin. But if you have something, we had committed to that, so I want to stay true to that. It's not quite 15 minutes, but close.
I have one. I mean, it's happened maybe a little over a month ago, but some people know that I'm checking on our fire team that's worked with for like 7 or 8 years or so. And we used to have Ryan Croker with the attitude, as I said, and we could call him at any time. So this happened a little over a month ago that a woman called because they know us. They called somebody actually, and they said she needed a rape kit, but the officer would not give her one. So and it's late, it's Friday, we don't know who to call. We used to have somebody to call. So she ended up, because of our history, she had Chief Terry's number and she had to call him, but that's not, he shouldn't be bothered
Right.
with that. So I mean, I guess my question is, will there be that kind of a relationship again that we had in the past? With somebody
Yes.
we can call that way?
You have my phone number, right?
What's that?
You have my phone number,
I
right?
do,
Yeah.
but I mean, but you don't have that particular position right now. Right?
Yeah,
Or
you
do
can,
Maybe
you
do.
can still call me.
What's that?
Call me regardless.
Yes, well, yeah. Okay, so right now you're the person.
Yes. And let me get that information afterward to look into it. I don't know if,
Yeah, I think.
I know Chief Terry just handled it,
Told
or-
Chief Terry, I think it got taken care of. But, I mean, without coordinating, I can have her call you. if she-
Yeah, have
if she
Nadine
didn't yell at me.
reach out to me.
If she didn't yell at me. But I mean, I guess it was more like a future, I guess I wanted to say that was such a, for several years we had that ability and we had a personal relationship too.
Yes.
That-
So
that
please
was
call
really
me.
helpful. We hope it happens again.
Yeah.
Yeah, if Josh is unavailable, you can always call a watch commander too. So there is a watch commander that is stationed 24/7. We're expanding the watch commander role to now to try to expand into also the West Side Command. We don't quite have it for all the shifts yet, but there is a watch commander, at least one watch
And how
commander
do
for
you reach
every
that
shift.
person?
If you call the communication center, they could transfer you to, or the phone number's 326-3818, you can call directly there as well.
So I have other question. We have like a neighbor, the homeless break into the house and they start living over there. And guy called the police, BPD, and nobody show up for 3 days. And nobody show up even after 3 days. He did call again, still nobody show up.
Okay.
So
That sounds weird.
Yeah.
Can I get with you after? I would like to get the address.
Yeah, I will give you the address.
First, make sure it's in the city jurisdiction.
Okay.
But that
It's in the
seems,
city, I think. But I will give you address. I don't know what happened.
yeah, yeah.
He
Give me,
told me, he's my neighbor. He said, nobody showing up, so.
yeah, give me the address afterward, and I'll look it up and find out what happened with it.
Okay.
Definitely.
This is helpful, at least for me, to see the tools you guys use, see them up close and personal, and how and why and when they're deployed.
So the old version that Lieutenant Dossi talked about, there was an issue with the actual balls. When we had them before, like in my academy, we actually got shot with them. And it didn't break the skin. I mean, it's similar to getting pepper sprayed, but you recover a little bit faster because it's not liquid that's stuck to your skin. It's just the powder in the air. It wasn't pleasant, but it didn't break my skin or anything. Any other questions? Any questions about the presentations at all? So similar to the TASER 10, if you have an issue with the pepper ball, reach out to me, but the plan will be to proceed with the 90-day test and evaluation. Tabitha, you brought up a good point. Not all of our tools are used within a 90-day period, so there's a good chance that if it's not used or not used enough to evaluate it, it'll get extended. Anything else? Let me double check my notes before I say we're done. Oh. Did you all think about the video? You want to do a group? I'm cool with the group if we want to do like
Group is fine, right?
4 people.
Group is fine.
Okay.
I would be involved in it.
Okay. I will. I'll coordinate with Elizabeth and Inez and see if I can find a time. Is evening better or daytime? Well, daytime you're far away.
Evening's good.
Evening?
Evening's fine.
Way far away. Yeah, evening would be.
Evening's good.
Okay. I've got.
Summer's coming up.
I've got some talking points, but if you're interested, I'll send an email out to the whole group. But if you're interested and you want to come up with some points that you would like to capture in the video, like Rosa brought up advertising, we're still accepting applications for CAP members. That's a good one. I didn't even think of that. Then we can find a way to incorporate that into it. But I'm kind of looking forward to it, not being on camera, but just seeing the end result of having a group of the CAP members. I think that'll be awesome. Karina, am I missing anything? Dave? Or Dan? Sorry.
We're good.
Good?
I got one thing I'll tell you.
Yes.
Before our next CAP meeting, we will open up and start accepting applications for the community academy. So if you guys know anybody who would be a good fit for our community academy, if you guys don't know, it's a 10-week program. We meet once a week for 3 hours. And we give you guys presentations and classes on various parts of the department to give the community a better understanding of what we do, why we do, and how we do what we do. Kind of what you guys do here, but a more broad perspective of the organization. So if there's anybody in mind you guys think would be a good fit for something like that, or if you guys want to participate in that, keep that in mind. I'll get with Lieutenant, we'll push all that information out to you guys too. We'll start opening that up May 1st, and it doesn't start until July. It goes through October,
Yeah.
so.
I'll send the flyer out for it. Anybody else? UPD staff? AC, anything? All right. Thank you all. We'll see you again with Sergeant Gavin and Detective Daddario next month.